Well, greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Today, I have a Texas subscriber interview where he shares the events of his terrifying encounter. Before we get into it, though, a couple links. As you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, and my merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. The links to Patreon and PayPal are in the description below. My merch is displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters Volume 1, 2, and 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeffrey Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, the links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe, click the like button, and please leave a comment. It really does help. And it matters. And now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's get on with today's terrifying upload, shall we? All right, everybody. Tonight, I have a subscriber with us. His name is Larry. He is from Texas, and he is going to share a couple of encounters that he has had. Larry, how are you today?
I'm doing fine. How are you, Jeff?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for taking some time out of your day to share your encounters with us. I really appreciate that.
It's no problem.
So, pretty much, you and I talked for a couple of seconds, minutes, whatever, beforehand. You told me about one that happened as a child. So, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn the floor over to you. And like you said, you're going to share your encounters like you do with your friends. So, the floor is yours, my friend.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, when I was around five years old, we lived on the west side of Denton, Texas, about 14 miles out. And we lived on 350 acres. Our nearest neighbor was a mile away, at least. And my parents had been gone to town that night, and they didn't get home until late, close to 9 o'clock, something like that. It was dark outside. And I heard my parents hollering and making a lot of noise, and you know, I was only about 5, but I was listening to what they were saying. And my dad was talking about there was a coyote or a wolf or something was in the driveway when they pulled in, and he jumped out of the truck and grabbed his gun off the gun rack in the back of the truck, and he shot at it, and it took off running. And it hit one of those big steel gates like you have on a farm, you know, the ones that don't rust. And it bent that gate in half when it hit it. I don't know what it was, and I didn't see it. My dad saw it, and he kept saying a coyote. And I didn't question him. He was my father, and I was only 5, so I didn't question what he said.
Right.
But I know the coyote can't bend one of those big iron gates. A cow has trouble bending them. And later on, it was in 1983, I believe. My son was 3 years old, 2 or 3 years old. And one morning I got up, and it was in the fall. I'm not sure exactly what day. But I was getting ready to go to work. I worked several towns over, and so I had to drive a little ways. It was just starting to get a light outside. And I went out to start my pickup to let it warm up. And I was going to go back in and drink a cup of coffee while it was warming up. I went out to my truck. Before I got out the door, me and my wife were talking, and we heard this terrible noise. I can't even describe it to you. And it was like a howling, but it just wasn't a howling. It was not right. Okay. And we had coyotes around there, but as far as I knew, that's all we had. And you know, we kind of looked at each other funny, and I went on getting ready to go to work, and I went out to my truck, and I started to stick the key in the keyhole and unlock the door, and I heard this crashing. It sounded like a bull elephant was coming through the woods behind my house. And there's an abandoned house behind us in the woods. You couldn't even see it from our house, but it was less than 100 feet to it. And whatever was coming through there was coming right down beside that house. And I just stopped what I was doing and stood there watching the edge of the woods. And before long, I saw coming out of this wood, standing upright, was a creature covered with hair, long, brownish red looking hair. And I couldn't really see any facial features. It was kind of foggy out. I lived right on the lake, so it was foggy a lot of mornings. But it probably was, I'd say, close to 6 foot tall. It wasn't over, it wasn't no 7 or 8 or 9, but it was probably about 6 foot tall, but real muscular. And at first I thought, am I seeing a Bigfoot? But as it got closer, it was walking right straight towards my front yard. And there was where the edge of the woods were, they'd taken out all the bigger trees, and there were small saplings, 6, 7 inches around, growing all over this field. And this thing was just walking right over them, just snapping them off. And it got right up to the edge of my yard. There's a drainage creek that ran through my yard down to the pond in my backyard. It got to the edge of that creek, and it turned and started walking towards the dirt road in front of my house instead of coming in my yard. At that point, it was probably about 20, 25 feet from me. Well, I just dropped to the ground. I was on the truck was between me and it, my pickup. So I just dropped to the ground and was watching it from under the truck. And frankly, I wet on myself. When I saw that thing's face, it had a shorter snout. It looked like a bulldog almost, the face. And I could see its canine teeth, and I could see the breath as it breathed in and out, the vapor from it. And I could see the hairs, I got a good look at it.
Right.
And people say that the ones they see have little pointed ears. Well, this thing's ears were kind of rounded, and they were on the side of its head, not right on top. Right. And I don't remember the eyes, really. I remember seeing the eyes, but I don't remember what color they were, because it had turned sideways to me by this time, and I could see the eyes, but I couldn't tell what color they were. And it never did look at me. It never looked over where I was at all. But it had to know I was there. I mean, I was having a cow, underneath the edge of the truck. But it walked all the way up the edge of my yard, and there was nothing between me and it but that little stream and a couple of trees. And it got to the edge of the road, and it stopped and looked back, up and down the road. And the road's a dead-end road. But it kind of sniffed the air, and I could hear it, sniffing. And then it just dropped down to all fours and ran across my neighbor's yard, across the street, over a hill. There was a bank of a pond there. Over the pond, that was the last time I saw it. But we started looking around, and we found prints, huge dog prints, in the mud where our sink and our bathtub stuff drained out, the gray water.
Yep.
Every day, new ones, every day around that drainage. I mean, they were, I'd say 4 or 5 inches across.
Wow.
And they were big dog prints. And I didn't go to work for about a week after that. I was scared to death. My wife and kids were in there, and I didn't want to leave them out there in the middle of nowhere by themselves.
Right. Yeah.
And I had a 410 shotgun and a 20 gauge pump and a 22 rifle. I wasn't going to shoot at this thing because I knew dang well I wasn't going to be able to kill it. So, but it visited our house a lot. Right. There was some nights, and me and my wife would be laying there and watching TV in bed, and I could look out the window and I could see just this kind of a shadowy figure sitting there. It looked like a big, huge dog sitting on its haunches, watching TV through the window with us.
Oh man, that's creepy.
I got to where I hung a blanket over the window,
Yeah. Well, when it went down on all fours and crossed the road, did it have a tail?
Did it have what? I'm sorry.
Did it have a tail?
I didn't notice. I never did notice whether it had a tail or not.
All right.
And I never, it didn't register in my head if I saw one.
Right. I mean, you got a shock of your life. You know, that's understandable completely.
I didn't know what I'd seen for years. I mean, I thought I saw a werewolf. That's what it looked like to me, was a werewolf. It looked like the ones, like the newer movies.
Yeah.
But those movies hadn't come out in '83.
Yeah.
You know. So when I saw one of those movies for the first time, I couldn't watch it. I had to get away. But yeah, it was a scary thing. It changed the way I did things. You know, like we lived in the middle of the woods. It really was hard on me. It's like, when my son told me later on, I never really told him too much about it. That when he was about 10 or 11 years old, he said, "Dad, did you know that ugly bear used to watch me sleep at night?"
Oh, man.
And I was like, "Oh, crap." You know, this damn thing was watching my kid sleep. He was like 3, 4 years old.
Wow. Now, as I'm assuming your wife obviously knew that this thing was there as well.
I told her, but I candy coated it.
Okay.
I told her I saw something. I didn't describe it to her or anything.
Wow. I mean, right there, just knowing that, it's watching TV, it's looking through your window, and then years later to find out that the thing is staring at your kid while he's sleeping must have just unnerved you,
I got angry. I got really mad when he first told me that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Apparently, it left a little scar on him too, because he gets kind of jittery and nervous when you bring it up to him. He's 40 years old now.
Wow, that's incredible. Now, is this at the camp that you were talking about? Is that where that happened?
Like Dallas, about 30 miles.
Okay.
In a little town called Culleoke.
Now, you said that you saw that one more time before you sold the property? Is that the...
No, I never saw it again. Okay. What I did see was an overly large, I want to say it was a coyote, but it could have been a wolf. I don't know. I mean, I saw an animal that was twice the size of any coyote I've ever seen before, maybe 3 times the size, running through our neighborhood several times just a couple of years ago before I sold the place.
That's a big dog. I mean,
it wasn't a dog.
Right. But how high would you say, like at the haunches, this thing was?
Probably 3 feet, maybe 3.5. It looked like it was marked up like a coyote.
Right.
The colors and everything.
Yeah, that's my brain's still going back, being a dad, thinking about this thing.
The thing I saw in '83, it didn't look nothing like that.
Right.
This thing looked more like what I would have thought a Bigfoot looked like, except for the canine face and stuff and the canine footprints.
Yeah.
I was just blown away. We were raising exotic birds, and it never did mess with those. I was surprised, but it attacked our Doberman one time, or she attacked it. And I took her to the vet, and she had like 72 stitches to close her up. Jeez. And the vet wanted to know what the hell got a hold of our dog. And I don't know, because I didn't see it, but our Doberman wouldn't even go outside for a long time. She stayed in the house. She became a house dog.
Wow. And they're not overly aggressive. They're just very protective dog and not really afraid of anything. They get a bad rap like pit bulls and stuff.
Oh, she was a sweetheart. Yeah. This dog was a sweetheart. And smart as she could be, but she would not go outside with us.
That's incredible. Now, there was something that you said to me, during our conversation, that you had, I don't know if you can say this, but you had your hands on this thing. Is that correct?
Yeah,
you never saw what was chasing you, but you got chased by something. You want to share that with us?
Sure. Yeah, it was. I don't know. My better sense didn't work that day, but I wanted to go fishing on a little creek that runs north of my hometown, Denton. It's called Clear Creek.
Okay.
And sandy bottom, gravel and sand. Real pretty place, but I wanted to go fishing in this hole of water there, a little ways up the creek from where I could park. And so I had to walk, maybe a half a mile. And I didn't get down there until right at dark. So I backpacked what I had with me, a couple of fishing poles, a 5-gallon bucket with some bait. And, I had a flashlight with me, one of those, the old square back ones that use a 9-volt battery, square battery.
Yep.
Yeah, I had that with me, and a 22 single shot rifle. Yeah, I got down there and I got my little fishing camp set up, and I'd already caught 2 or 3 nice channel cat out of the hole of water, and I heard something coming through it was like a maize field, the grain maize.
Okay.
And I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to it because there's a few deer in the area. So, but then I heard it jump from the edge of the bank across the little creek I was fishing in. It was a good 20 feet and landed on the gravel. There was a gravel bed behind me. And it landed on this gravel, and I heard the gravel and stuff. And I turned around and I was listening, and I could hear it walking, and whatever it was only had 2 feet. It wasn't walking on 4. And it scared the crap out of me, so I just fired a shot up in the air. And when I did, this thing took off running. I mean, running across that gravel bed, and the bank on the other side, it was a good 20 feet straight up, and this thing jumped to the top of it. And it came around and got right above me on that tall bank, and I could hear it up there breathing. It's just standing up there above me, but I couldn't see it. And I had broken my flashlight just a little bit before that. Just a few minutes before that, I dropped it on, and it hit the ground, and it came all to pieces. So I didn't have a light to shine up there and see what was above me. Huh. And so I gathered up all my stuff, and I walked back towards where I had my car parked. Right. And I stayed in the water up to my waist. I wasn't about to get out of the water on the bank. And this thing followed me all the way around. I could hear it coming through the woods. It just kept pace with me. I never got my eyes on it. But where I parked at, the woods stopped, and they'd made a parking area. And it never came out of the edge of the woods. It stopped right there. I don't know what it was. It was something big, and it was very interesting in me.
Yeah.
I never went down there by myself again.
I mean, if it had to be something not human, because to jump a 20-foot.
No, it wasn't human.
Embankment, you know what I mean? That's, geez, I'm crow. That must have
it was straight up. It didn't walk up it. It couldn't.
Was this before or after you saw?
It's before.
Before, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was when I was married to my first wife. So yeah, it was before, because I was married to my second one when it happened at Lake Levon.
Now you bought the house off your parents, you said. Did they ever see anything out there?
No.
No? Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. I'm still blown away. I mean, about the whole being a dad and stuff. I'm thinking about, if my daughter said there was something staring at me through my window, holy shit, man, that's terrifying.
Yeah, he didn't tell me nothing about it until 10 years later, Yeah. Or 8 years later, I was like, son. He says, well, I just thought about it.
Wow.
But you know what? It seems like I remember him mentioning that to me way before that, and I kind of blew him off, and I don't know why.
Right.
There must have been a reason.
Yeah. I mean, maybe you didn't want to acknowledge that something was out there. You know,
I didn't want to ever. I put it in the back of my mind and buried it. But when I would go out in the woods with the kids, they always wanted to go out and exploring and go camping and stuff. You talk about being a nervous wreck.
yeah.
Oh my God. But I never let on. I would go. They wanted to know why I always had to carry a loaded gun. I was like, because you never know.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, other than the noise, like, I'm sure you heard like howling or whatever throughout this time. Was there, when it was outside of your windows, did you ever hear any noises or?
No,
Nothing?
just movement sometimes,
Okay.
But it never made any growl. I never heard any growling or none of that.
Wow.
No.
That's, I mean, geez, crow.
And the night I saw it sitting on branches, I wouldn't have saw it if I hadn't saw. I saw some kind of eye shine just for a second, just a flash.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently, it turned and looked towards me, and then turned back. But I started looking, and I could see it sitting there, and I pointed it out to my wife, and she saw it too. And she said, "Put something over that damn window." I covered the window, and we never saw it again.
Right. Wow. I mean, geez, crow. That's crazy because your son saw something, and then you lived through something around his age, growing up, that whatever bent the fence out there at your parents' house. I mean, geez, crow.
Yeah, I've always seen, or I've always paid a lot of attention to my surroundings.
Yep.
I remember my mom commenting on that when I was 7 or 8 years old. I remember her commenting to people that I always was real in tune to what was going on around me. And I've seen flying objects. I've seen creatures I could not explain. I saw one creature one time when I was hunting with my dad. I was about 6 years old when we were rabbit hunting, and something jumped up at the edge of the fence line.
Yeah.
And it ran into the ditch where the weeds were real high, so I couldn't see it. But I swear to God, it looked like a slinky.
Yep.
Boy, the slinky. It looked like a slinky, but it was covered with a reddish brown skin. And that's how it ran. It was like a slinky when you see it walking down the stairs.
Yeah.
And I told my dad about it, and he thought I was crazy. But I swear to God, I saw something like that. I don't know what it was.
Yeah, that's creepy. I mean, how big was that?
It was just bigger than a slinky, probably. About to be around as a mayonnaise jar, maybe, and about 2 foot long.
Wow.
I didn't see any head or tail or feet, it just looked like a cylinder, and it was going end over end.
That's definitely interesting.
Yeah. I never have figured out what that was. My dad said, "Oh, you saw a fox." Okay.
Yeah. Parents like to put the easiest blame, But that was just this, that was just that.
But I knew damn well I didn't see a fox.
Yeah. Absolutely. Wow. So
it didn't have any hair on it. It was just bare skin. What I saw.
Now the really quick, the encounter when you were a kid, was that at the same spot that you had?
No.
No. Okay.
No.
Okay.
No, it was on some land that my parents were renting. It was west of Denton, Texas, and the sighting in '83 of the Dogman was about 30 miles northeast of Dallas.
Okay.
So there's a good 40 or 50 miles in between them.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's obviously something lurking around Texas. Like we said, it's a big state. There's definitely, we've had a couple of attacks, that one in Hood County, and unexplained. I called the sheriff. They couldn't tell me. I mean, it's a big state, and it's open, like you said. and it's just
there's places in Texas where people probably never have stepped.
Absolutely.
Sure of that.
Now, you said you saw multiple strange animals that you've seen out in the woods, or just that one slinky-like thing?
Well, no, I've seen other animals. I didn't know what they were, and I didn't get a good look at them, enough to even describe them to you. Okay. One morning, me and my father and a couple of uncles and I think a brother-in-law, we were squirrel hunting, and we get down there 4 o'clock in the morning and post up under a good tree and sit there and wait for squirrels to come out. We were all sitting under this one tree. It was the biggest tree in Denton County. It was in the record books. It was a cottonwood tree. It was 6.5 foot diameter. Okay. It was a monster.
Yeah, it's a big tree.
And for down here, it is a monster. And we were sitting there, all of us, and there was no wind blowing or anything that day. I mean, it was a nice, still morning, beautiful day. And we heard a tree limb break. And we all just looked at each other because it was so loud. I mean, it was deafening loud. After it got daylight, we all got up and started walking through the woods, and we came up to this big pecan tree, and there was a limb as big around as, I'd say it's probably 40 inches, around it. Broke off right in the middle, not up against the tree. And it was good 15 feet up to that limb on the tree. And there was no wind or anything. What broke that tree limb? None of us knew. I mean, it was kind of scary after that. We were all looking around to see if we could see anything, but we never saw anything. And it was probably about 50 yards from where we were posted up under that tree hunting.
Right, yeah. That's creepy. That is definitely. My brain just keeps going back to your poor kid one, man. Holy jeez and crow.
Yeah, my heart broke that day when he told me that. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, I can only imagine. But Jesus.
And his window, he said it was standing and watching through the window. And I asked him about where was its eyes, and he said right up at the top. And his window was 4 feet from the ground at the bottom of his window. Huh. And so whatever was watching him had to be pretty tall.
Yeah.
So, and the one I saw he wasn't more than 6 feet tall. But I've always heard there's one, there's more, so I don't know.
Absolutely. That's pretty much the gist of it. Where there's one, there's usually two, maybe three, maybe four, who knows?
Well, that one that I saw that morning, it wanted me to know it was there, but it did not look at me. It didn't make any kind of motion or any kind of action to say, I see you. It didn't. Not a thing.
Now, when that got down on all fours, did it cross the road, you said?
Yeah, it went down on all fours and ran across the road like a dog.
Real quick, or is it two? Imagine it was a 2-lane road. One, so
it's a little gravel dirt road, 1 lane.
Okay. So probably
there were tracks. There were tracks in the dirt on the side of the road. I looked later.
Breaking up a little bit.
Okay, I'm sorry. There were footprints in the dirt on the side of the road where it ran across. I went out there later and saw them.
Huh. Wow.
But some people I've heard you'll say that it made a popping noise and stuff when it went down. I didn't hear anything.
Right.
And I was close. I was close to this. Way too close.
Yeah. I mean, all encounters are different, to be honest. That's what I've come to learn. Some hear noises, some smell, some don't. Some do this, some do that.
I didn't smell anything, but I could, like I said, I could see its breath when it was breathing in and out.
Yeah.
And it wasn't somebody in a costume because I could see its skin under its hair.
Wow, that is just amazing.
And I couldn't see its feet because it was in grass a little bit past its knees.
Okay.
That may be why I didn't see a tail.
Yeah. I mean, who knows? Maybe it didn't have one,
I don't know. I didn't notice one when it was running off across the street. It wasn't in the grass then, but I didn't notice.
Yeah.
I really was looking at where the front door was and if I could get there before he got me.
Yeah.
And see what it looked like.
Yeah.
Because I thought I was dead. I really did. When I first saw it, got a good look at it when it came out of those woods. Son, I thought I was a goner. I couldn't believe I was looking at something that wasn't supposed to be real.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's just it's a frightening experience, you know. And
and I buried it for years. I didn't think about it. If it started creeping into my mind, I thought about something else.
Wow. Truly a terrifying tale, my friend. I appreciate you sharing it with us. I really do.
It's my pleasure. And just want people to be careful out in the woods. Because there is things out there that, I've hunted and camped out, fished all my life ever since I was 5 years old. I'd go with my dad hunting and fishing. And I've seen stuff that I couldn't explain. And my dad, he would just blow me off if I tried talking to him about it. Apparently he knew things were out there, but he didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah. Probably had the point of view is if I don't talk about it, it doesn't exist, you know?
It's kind of how I was about it for years, until just the last couple of years. Yeah. And I talked to Vic, and he's the one who pointed out to me what it was, and I was like, oh, okay. I thought I was seeing a werewolf. Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely an interesting encounter, whole different perspective of the atypical Dogman. It just goes to show that there's many different features like human beings. I think that
this thing had a lot of hair on it. I mean, a lot of hair, more than the typical dog would have.
Right. Did it have like a mane kind of, or no?
I didn't notice a mane.
Okay.
It didn't. It did like I said. It didn't really have a neck that I could see, but it had huge shoulders and
wow,
and arms. And I did see its hands, and they looked to me like a raccoon's hands, but huge.
Yeah,
a lot bigger than mine.
Yeah, that's when I had my encounter. Mine was not your atypical Dogman. It was. It was. You could tell the thing was strong. You could definitely tell it was strong.
Yeah.
But it was skinny. It was tall, but it was skinny. Weird skinny. And the way it walked and moved was awkward looking. And its hands. I recall the hands, and I've said it a couple of times. They resembled a raccoon. That's the only thing I could think of was a raccoon.
And this thing was like a short, stocky man. It wasn't tall and skinny. There was no skinny to it. It looked like a short, stocky built man.
Right. Wow. I mean, that's just. Wow. Blown away.
And the muzzle on it was really short. I mean, it reminded me of a bulldog.
Right. Jeez, I'm blown away. You got me. I'm gonna be thinking all night about your poor kid, man. Holy jeez, wow.
Yeah, he called it an ugly bear.
Yeah. I mean, Jesus, what are you're 3-4 years old. What the hell are you supposed to think it is? Wow. I mean, that's not a fond memory. Whew.
No, nothing fond about it.
Yeah.
My whole life changed, at that time. But I covered it up good. I handled it well, I think. But, me and my wife both were freaked out about it. Because I did tell her.
Well, it's a hard thing to deal with, I mean, you got something that exists. Now 100% they exist. But your whole life prior, you were told these things don't exist or something like that doesn't exist. And the scary part is monsters really do friggin' exist.
Yeah, and how many times I've been in their presence and didn't know it because I was told they weren't real.
Yep. I mean, you plus they're so quiet. They're an apex predator,
Right.
and smart as can be, because
Well, this thing could have took my head off easy.
yeah.
It wouldn't have been much of a struggle for him to kill me. I was so glad it didn't look at me or anything.
Yeah, and like you said, it knew you were there. It just
I'm sure it did.
probably just wanted you to see it, just to say, "Hey, look at me." Frick you.
Well, we had seen the large footprints before I saw this animal. We had noticed these huge canine footprints in the mud around our pond and stuff. I just thought it was a big dog. I told my wife, it's just a big dog.
Right.
But yeah, it was.
It was using your pond for drinking water, and
I don't know why. We lived on a lake.
yeah.
There were 30 ponds within walking distance of my house.
Who knows?
And it was coming from towards the Corps of Engineers land, the wild land in the back part of the lake. I lived on the end of the lake, the flood plain area.
Yeah.
And it was coming from down in that area.
It's funny that you said that, because I've been analyzing different encounters, and not anything about the encounters, but more or less where they happened. And a lot of encounters happen around military, not installations, but just military-owned land for some reason.
Yeah, Corps Engineers. Let me tell you, that was some years later. I was deer hunting with my brother-in-law up at Lake Bridgeport, which is in the opposite direction on the other side of Denton.
Uh-huh.
And we were camped out, and we were on the backside of the lake on the floodplains area. And we'd gone to bed in a little 3 or 4 man tent. And we left a Coleman lantern hanging in a tree about 6-7 feet high next to the tent. Yeah. And I was laying there just starting to doze, and my brother-in-law he was already asleep. And something walked between that lantern and the tent, cast a hell of a shadow over us. Well, I woke my brother-in-law up and grabbed him. I had a pistol with me. I grabbed it, and he grabbed his, and we went out. We never saw anything. Something big walked between that lantern and our tent. And it was in the backside of Lake Bridgeport.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely stuff out there, that's for darn sure.
Yep. And I didn't hear any noise or anything. I just saw the shadow go by, and I was like, holy crap, what the hell is that?
Yeah. And
we had killed a deer earlier, and we had it in a storage locker type thing that was there on the land.
Yeah.
And it was locked up. It was inside of a metal storage locker. And maybe it smelled the blood. I don't know.
Maybe.
It was 25 feet from where we were camping.
Right. Yeah, and you wouldn't have saw this thing if, that lantern wasn't there. You weren't awake.
Right.
And just like you said, how many times out in the woods was I in the presence of one of these things that you just didn't know? We don't know. We honestly don't know how lucky we are sometimes just going on a simple hike and coming home alive.
Well, that same sun, one time I was running trot lines, and what I do is I'll go out to the little creeks and rivers around here, and I'll wade out in the water waist deep, set my trot lines out between 2 fallen logs or whatever, the bait. And my son started screaming at me one day. He was just me and him there. And I left him sitting on this big tree that falling over a log. And he started hollering at me, Dad, get back up here. Dad, come here. I'm in trouble, I went back up there. I said, what? He said, there was an animal standing right there looking at me. And I said, well, describe it to me. And his description was all over the place as far as I was concerned. It wasn't any animal that I could, identify by his description. But he said it looked like a giant cat.
Well,
I don't know. I don't know. I went over there and the ground was dry and hard and there was no tracks. But something scared that boy after death. He was probably about 10, 11 years old at the time.
well, there's been encounters with humanoid cats. Trying to think off the top of my head, I don't remember where in Texas, but there was.
This was on Justin Creek.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then,
It was between Fort Worth and Denton.
yeah, there's
It's actually the same creek that we heard the big limb break on, but probably 30 miles downstream from it.
Yeah, there's definitely, people have definitely claimed to have seen some sort of humanoid cat-looking thing.
What he described was more a cat-like than anything. But
was it bipedal?
I didn't see it.
Did he say it was bipedal, standing on 2 legs, or was it on 4?
I didn't ask him. He didn't say. That's something I think I'll ask him next time I see him.
Yeah, if you don't mind, that'd be great. And if you could send me a message that way, I could maybe put an update on it.
Yeah, he lives here in town, so I'll ask him. He's gone out looking for Indian relics this weekend. So.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. If you don't mind, when you speak to him, and if you could, ask him if he remembers if the quote unquote big ugly bear, if he remembers.
Oh yeah, he'll remember it.
If he remembers the eye color, or if there was an eye color, or any sort of,
Okay.
If you don't mind, I'd appreciate that.
I don't mind if I can get him to talk about it. He doesn't like to talk about it.
I can't
He starts shaking when he talks about it.
Yeah. It's definitely a traumatic thing, especially for a small kid to experience and then hold on to for that long. Geez, I'm crow. I can't even believe it. Wow.
Yeah, well, he's a pretty tough little guy. He always was. I say little guy, he's 6'1". He's not a little guy anymore.
Right. Absolutely. Well, Larry, it's been great talking to you, my friend. I appreciate you coming on and sharing this with us. And like I said, please keep me updated. And it was just wonderful just hearing these encounters from you.
My pleasure.
I'm literally tonight, I'm going to be thinking about your poor kid all night. Jesus, holy God.
Well, he's 40 years old now. He's 6'1".
Yeah.
And I have 2 granddaughters by him. He's grown up. He can take care of himself.
Oh, yeah. But I remember being that age, a little older, and having something messed up happen. And, I still, and it was definitely a freaky, nothing to do with a cryptid but a paranormal encounter. I believe
I had plenty of those too. My God.
It was a ghost, or something, and every once in a while that pops into my brain, and I still get what the was that anyway? It's still.
Yeah, I still get sick in my stomach sometimes when I think about things that I've seen.
Yeah.
When I was younger than 16. 13, I remember hearing things walk around in my house at night, my parents' house.
Yep.
And I even had things come down. I could hear them walking down the hallway, the boards creaking, and they come in my room and stand at the foot of my bed and watch me.
Yeah.
And I just cover my head up. And I'm not talking about once or twice. I'm talking about this was nightly for years.
Yeah. No, we had an old farmhouse, and the old farmhouses up here, there was always for some reason, in the majority of houses that I've been, big Victorian farmhouses where in upstate New York, they always have a front staircase that's made of beautiful wood and stained real nice and banister and shit like that, and then the back stairwell. Usually the steps were a green color, painted green. Well,
I remember that color. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, well, my back steps going to my bedroom, my parents, of course, had the front steps from the living room. You'd go up into their room, and then my room was right at the base or beginning of the back steps as you walk up them. Well, one night I'm lying there, and I distinctly remember because my dad got up early in the morning, and he'd always make coffee, and it'd be like not early, but 5 o'clock to get ready for work. But this was like 3:30 in the morning, and I heard it. I heard someone. You distinctly know when you hear a spoon stirring a cup of coffee because it makes that clink.
Ding, 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 yeah.
So I'm lying there and I hear that and I'm like, what the fuck? Why is Dad up so early? And why aren't I sleeping? And I had just woken up for some reason. So I'm lying there and I'm like, that's weird. And then I hear something. At this point I'm thinking it's my dad coming up the back stairs, and I'm like, why is he carrying his cup of coffee up the stairs? And why is he using these stairs? Because he never used those stairs. Because it was the back stairs, they had, the green stairs always went straight up, and they were at a steeper pitch than the front ones. And whatever it was got to the top of those stairs. And like I said, my bedroom, as you got to the top of the stairs, all you'd have to do is turn and boom, my room, and then the rest of the hallway. And whatever was there, I remember I got this real bad feeling, and I covered my head. Like you said, you just covered your head, and just eventually I fell asleep. I don't know how long it was, but that, and then from then on I slept with my door closed and locked.
Yeah, and it didn't matter if I closed my door. It would open the door and come in.
Oh, Jesus.
And one night I sat up and said, Mom, what do you want? Because it looked like it had on a long purple-looking robe, a real light color purple.
Like a lilac?
Yeah, like a lilac color. And my mom had a nightgown that was that color. But it wasn't her. It just vanished in thin air when I spoke to it.
Yeah, that's oof. Right then and there, I would have pissed the bed.
I never did that. I did piss my pants when I saw that Dogman.
Well, a lot of people, when they see the Dogman or a Sasquatch or something like that, they do. And I've talked to quite a few people that were embarrassed of it. And I was like, dude, why are you embarrassed of something that our body naturally does? We're an animal.
Yeah, I wasn't embarrassed about it. I was mad.
Yeah, but like we're an animal. And when any animal, I don't care what it is, gets pissed or scared or whatever, they tinkle. I mean, lack of a better word. But,
yeah, my dog Jimmy has that problem.
And I think that why that happens, it's just a natural reaction to set a different smell, a pheromone or whatever into the atmosphere to, kind of distract whatever we're afraid of.
I didn't thought of it that way, but you're probably right. I hadn't thought of it that way. A way to just, to put a different smell out there.
Yeah, do I know 100% for sure? No. Does it make sense to me? Sure does, but who knows? It might be something different. It might just be our bladder's weak and we piss ourselves. So,
that's the only time I've ever been scared enough to pee on myself. I gotta tell you that. I've been scared before, but that was a whole different type of scare.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can only imagine. I mean, the way you're describing it, it's a terrifying looking creature.
Yeah, I've got a girlfriend who's from England, and she has me tell her that story. I'll probably tell it to her 50 times. She loves it. She says, tell me that story again.
That's crazy. That is crazy. Well, my friend, it was great talking to you. Is there anything that you'd like to say to the other subscribers out there before we end the interview?
No, just be careful when you go out in the woods. Take somebody with you. Don't go by yourself.
Yeah, most definitely.
I made that mistake that night. That thing followed me back to my car. I would never go anywhere like that at night by myself.
Yeah, I agree. Well, it was awesome talking to you, my friend. Have a great rest of your weekend. Happy Easter, and please don't forget about keeping me updated on that those
Okay, I
two
will.
things if you don't mind.
I'll check into it as soon as he gets back. This probably Sunday night.
All right. Well, don't hang up before when we end the interview. I'd like to talk to you for a few minutes after.
Okay.
So it was great having you on, and thanks a lot.
You too, and you stay warm.
Yeah, definitely. You too.
Yes, sir.
Wow, what an absolutely horrifying set of events. I honestly could never imagine being in this man's predicament. I hope you guys enjoyed this interview as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. A really nice guy. Wow. Anyway, let's all thank our stars that those of us, I've had my experience, but it was never anything like this gentleman's. And I hope I never have to experience anything like it again. And I hope none of you guys do either, or anything remotely similar to this person's, mine. Stay safe, guys. Stay vigilant in the woods. Be hyper aware of all of your surroundings. With that, may the Great Spirit watch over us all, and may He guide us down that path that we call life.